Welcome to the Strengthen Leadership Podcast. My name is Chris Jones. I'm the pastor of Hope Community Church, and we are talking about flipping the script from 2080 to 80-20. If you watched the previous episode, you know, and you've probably used the term before, 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And we talked last episode about how that keeps people tired, keeps morale low, keeps significance low. It's just not a great way to do things. And Jesus himself looked at the disciples, actually right before he sent them out to do ministry. Pray to the Lord of the harvest that he would send laborers, because the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And we have to get our heads as leaders wrapped around whatever organization you're in, that it takes more people. It's going to require more people. And so I want to talk to you about flipping the script and making room for those people. We talked last time about what happens in a 2080 circumstance and the results of a 2080 circumstance, that it always lacks participation, it always lacks energy, and it always lacks significant results. And I'm not saying the one is not significant. I'm saying if your goal is to reach your community, 20% of the people doing 80% of the work will lack significant results. If you want to grow your business, one person doing all the work will lack significant returns. So we're going to flip the script today. We're going to flip it to 80-20. And there's a couple things that we have to do to make sure this happens. And the first thing is leaders have to be investing the majority of their time not doing the work, but investing in the people who are doing the work. And so if you're a leader watching this that gets a lot of significance, a lot of feel good, a lot of dopamine from completing the project and getting in there with your hand, like, gee, I got to do it. You have to change your mind about that. That most of your work moving forward will be investing in other people. Jesus invested in the disciples. He never looked at them and said, I'm so tired from healing people, I can't talk to you guys tonight. He invested in the disciples, and they turned around after he ascended and started churches, and the gospel moved forward rapidly because it was a 80-20, not because it was 20-80. And so leaders have to invest their time in training, mentoring, and teaching others. It's the fivefold ministry of the church. It's what God called leaders to do. And so if you're in the business world, it's still what he's called you to do. If you're going to increase the size of your business, you can't just work more hours. You have to invest in people. And so that's the first thing. We have to change our mind from doing to investing in the people who can do. And then significant work is only done in the development of others. So we talk about this all the time. If you work, let's say you work 3,000, let's say you're a rock star and you work 3,000 hours a year, which would be crazy. 3,000 hours a year. You can still only do 3,000 hours of the work. But if you equip 10 people to work 2,000, or that's around average, it's exponential how much work can get done. And so we have to flip the script in what our leadership looks like. So significant ministry is accomplished through equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. And I go back to Ephesians where he said, Paul said, God has given us all these leaders to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. So we're flipping the script again. Our job is to equip, not just put our heads down and do. And so many business owners, nonprofit, heads of nonprofit, pastors of churches are stuck doing the work. And the people around them, they're just teaching the leaders they surround themselves. They just put their head down and say, we're a small group and we're just going to do all the work. And you actually have to lift your head up and say, wait a second, we've got it wrong. We got to flip that, and we've got to pull back a little bit. I'm going to get into that here in a second. Pull back a little bit and flip it, and 80% of our time be spent investing in people, and then 20% of the time doing the work. So I have this little phrase we started saying, reduce to invest, reduce to invest. So what happens is if you're 20/80 and you're doing 80% of the work yourself, you have no bandwidth to invest in everyone else. And so what I've started recommending is reducing the work, and there's going to be some tension there. There's going to be some tension there, because especially if whoever I'm talking to gets a large amount of significance and feedback, and that's what you like to do. It's going to take effort not to do it, to equip somebody else to do it. But trust me, it is possible. And so you have to reduce to invest. Some people think I'll still do 80% of the work and then I'll just ramp it up another 20% and I'll be investing in people. And that won't get you there. So you have to start cutting back what you do to give yourself time to invest in other people. What we tend to do is we take on the work till it's overwhelming, and then we can't do that. So I'm telling you to back off a little bit, reduce what you're doing to move the percentages in favor of investing. And I'm not saying do whatever. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm saying we have to over time realize that if I'm 20/80, I have to start to swing that pendulum the other way. Okay, so what could I reduce this week and invest in somebody else that could possibly do that? What could I reduce next week and invest in somebody else that could possibly do that? So all of a sudden we are clawing back some time. We're clawing back some energy. We're clawing back some margin to say, I'm gonna then take this and put it somewhere with a higher return, and that is in people. And so we have to figure out what those things are. You have to look at your calendar and figure out what those things are. What could we put aside now in order to do it more effectively later? Now, I'm going to wrap it up with this. 20/80 people, 20/80 mentality starts off typically the wrong way. We start off by doing. We start off by going, oh, I'm just going to do it, and then I'll find somebody else. I'm just going to do it, and then I'll find somebody else. And we've all been told you do it once, and then you do it again with somebody with you, and then you let them do it while you're with you, and then you let them do it while you're not with you. And that's pretty good. If you're a high-level leader, I'm recommending that you build the team first before you do anything. That building the team is the first thing you do. And in churches, if we're going to do a significant amount of work, it requires building a team. And so if you get something in your head, hey, we're going to try this out in our organization, our business, or whatever it is, the team has to be built first. And once you get the team in place, then you can go off and do significant work. If you start just doing it by yourself and you run into that thing, you're going to be stuck with low margins. You're going to be stuck with low energy because you're just in the middle of the trenches doing it. So what I found helpful is, man, if God's given me an idea of something that we're supposed to do at Hope Community Church, okay, who can I get around me to flesh this out? Who can I get around me that knows how to do it? Who can I get around me that's excited about it? And we build a team first, and then that team figures out who can we get to do the work. And the results of that are always more significant than if I just started doing something. So I want to leave you with this. I want you to start, if you're a 20/80 right now, if you're a 20/80 and you're driving yourself nuts, I want you to start thinking about it on a daily basis. What can I reduce? What can I draw back a little bit? And then find somebody else that I can invest in. Find somebody else that I can teach. Find somebody else that I can train. Find somebody else I can mentor. And start pulling back a little bit of what you do so that you can invest. And then whatever you do can end up growing. Because it always takes people. And I love the fact that when Barnabas was in Antioch at the beginning of Acts, when Antioch was blowing up, he didn't go, I'm just going to stay here and do all the work. I'm going to do all the work. No, he goes and gets Paul, brings them there. They teach together. And then in 12 months, 13 months, then the church is at the place they've invested in people that they go off and do missions work. And then we see it in Ephesus, we see it in Corinth, we see it in Philippi, we see it all these places where Paul shows up, develops a team, and then rolls out and there's still a church there. So if Paul had a 20-80 mentality, he would stay in the first church he went to and say, well, I'm so busy doing all this work that I can't get out. But he had an 80-20 mentality. I'm going to invest 80% of my time in people. And when I walk out of this place, there's going to be a church. And so listen, I want to encourage you. You may be in a 20-80 circumstance, but you can flip this, you can flip that script, you can flip that percentage, and you can work towards it this year and make it an 80-20. And watch your organization, business, watch the church explode when you equip more people to do more work. We'll see you next time.